Why, hello again. Go back for part 2. So if you guys have seen part 1 of this video, we're talking about grammar and punctuation. We took all these lovely notes that are down here, and we're going to continue on that train. Even though when I recorded this, I just stopped, but you get the point. Okay. Previously, in case you guys need a quick recap, we talked about apostrophes and how they can do 3 different things. We talked about parentheses and how they can clarify information. We talked about brackets, how they can interject information. Talked about colons, which make a list, semicolons, which can be a brief pause, semicolons, which link 2 sentences together, commas, which do a brief pause, and dashes, which are used for a dramatic pause. Okay, which brings us to the next thing, an ellipses. It is very aggravating when people call this ... It is not ... It's called an ellipses. Thank you. An ellipses looks like this. It's 3 periods that are right next to each other. Okay. And again, I'm changing up my style of my notes, but I think you get the idea. An ellipses is a symbol that you use to show that text has been cut off somehow. So you're going to do one of these. Symbol that shows text being cut off. Okay. Symbol that shows text is being cut off. Now, the example that I have in my notes is this one, which is a really popular one. The man ran back into the room and shouted at everyone, "There are zombies outside!" But with a crash behind him, it was already too late. Okay, cool. So, normally in class, I would be like, all right, kids, what happened to that guy? And everyone's just like, oh, he dead. Yes, that's what happened. Or at least that's the implication, right? So the ellipses is your hint that something happened to the guy. You're using punctuation to feed into the emotion of the scene or the character, right? Boom. That's what it does. Using ellipses to show that text is being cut off. Most often, people will always like write down like a long quotation, and then they'll stop the quotation and they'll put ... or an ellipses at the end of it. And that's to indicate that the quote keeps going, but that they're choosing to cut it off right there. That works perfectly fine. Okay. It's usually how people do it. We're almost done. We're getting there. Okay. Now, if you guys have noticed, my camera probably isn't showing it, but I'm running out of space down here, so I'm going to go ahead and flip to a new page. That's just me, and I'm going to label it Grammar and Punctuation. Grammar and Punctuation, Part 2. Boom. Okay, an exclamation point. A lot of you know this one. An exclamation point. I'm totally like losing train of thought as I'm writing. An exclamation point is one of these. Everyone draws it differently. Looks like that. Okay. What this symbol is technically used for is a symbol to express or say, whatever you want to do, to express high volume / excitement. Everyone pretty much knows what that is. Not everyone knows how to use one, however. That's a completely different ballgame here. So you need to keep in mind in the example that I have in the PowerPoint there, it says, the boy ran into the room and told his mom, "Mom, I'm scared!" Okay, I apologize that that was really loud, but that's technically what they wrote. That's boring. Okay, in order for an exclamation point to work effectively as a writer, you want to use your words to show the scene. Because if you're not doing that and you're just like, oh, the boy told his mom, "Mom, I'm scared," like in a loud voice, you know, he's not displaying any emotion there. So then why are you using an exclamation point? See what I mean? Like, it doesn't really do anything. Now, if you say something like this, my bottom example, it's better when I do it in class because I actually scream while doing this. But, you know, the bottom example is going to be like this. The boy sprinted through the door, a look of terror on his face as he looked up at his mom and screamed at her, "Mom, I'm scared!" You know, wow, that's like a different level of emotion, right? Stop laughing at me and pay attention, okay? That's what you want to do with an exclamation point. You want to demonstrate the language. You want to show the language to the reader. Don't just say he told his mom, "Mom, I'm scared." Like, he's just saying it in a loud voice. That's boring. That's emotionless. You want to paint the scene by using other words to make your exclamation point impactful. Okay? I hope that makes sense. It should make sense. Show me, don't tell me. There's the rule of thumb that everyone says. Show me, don't tell me. Next, you have what is called a period. Period. Now, if you notice in parentheses here, I also have it called a full stop. If you're using your thinking caps, which you should right now, if a period is a full stop, what do you think a comma is? I'm just doing like a mental countdown right now. Okay, a comma is called a half stop. Yay. And a period looks like that, which you all probably know. Okay. So what does a period do? It's a symbol that ends a normal sentence. So symbol that ends or concludes a normal sentence. A normal sentence. That's it. Great job, period. That's all I have for you. You're boring. Next, a hyphen. Keep in mind that a hyphen, otherwise known as the minus key, as you can see, notice how the two dashes, the N dash and the M dash, are grayed out, and the red one up there is the hyphen itself. Hyphen is not a dash, even though some people don't know any better, and they'll make that typo all the time, even in the world of journalism. So a hyphen. A hyphen looks like that. Okay. By the way, I didn't draw a dash on the other side, but drawing a dash is just longer. All right. Hyphens do two specific things that you want to pay attention to. There are two definitions here. Number one is really, really simple. Okay. A hyphen can take a word, imagine a word right here in my hands, and it can break up the word into parts to increase its length for a particular reason. It's when you're breaking up a word to sound it out, kind of. So if you take a look there, I have the word pronunciation, right? If I hyphenate the word by pulling it apart with hyphens, it becomes this: pronunciation, right? You've seen people probably do that. If you guys ever saw the Fairly Odd Parents, and there was that one character who would like twitch every time he was like Fairly Odd Parents, right? Like he's kind of doing something like that. You know, rather than saying just, oh yes, pronunciation. No, you're saying pronunciation, right? You're pulling it apart. So this is a symbol to pull apart words. I would definitely write the example here. Pronunciation. Draw a little arrow. Pronunciation. Do something like that. I ran out of room, but you get the idea. Okay? Pronunciation. The other thing it can do is if you hyphenate a bunch of words together, technically what you're doing is writing one really, really big word. So look at my second example down there. It says this: or maybe you'll see a person trying to rush through a lot of words at once by lumping them all together because they have to talk really, really fast. Okay, if you've ever heard a radio commercial do that, where they're like advertising something and then at the end they're just like, terms and conditions might apply, and then they just rattle off a paragraph. Technically, if you were to look at the script of that, the entire thing at the end would be hyphenated together, so it's technically all one word. So a symbol that can combine words together. It can join words together. Now, if you do it, like I said, if you do it with a bunch of words all at once, then technically you're supposed to read them really, really fast because it's one word, right? If you guys ever listen to any of Eminem's music, technically, if you were to write it out, a lot of his stuff when he raps really, really quickly should be all hyphenated together because he's doing it super, super quick. Okay? There's a hyphen in a nutshell. A question mark. That's a really easy one. Question mark is a mark that you use. Looks like this. Question mark. A question mark is what you use to have an inquiry. So symbol to show a question / inquiry. If you don't know what inquiry is like you are questioning something. Or you could also say an inquisitive statement. Ooh, look at you using fancy words now. Okay, inquisitive statement. So, my example right here is, how old is Demony? You're never going to get an answer. So, just move on. Stop asking me. Okay, there you go. Next, you have a quotation mark. Okay, quote marks. Quote marks. Please, I am begging you, please understand that if you write quote marks, if you open up a quote, you must close a quote. You have to close a quote. I've seen kids before where they write whole essays where they will open up a quote with a quote mark and they'll never close it, which technically means the rest of their essay is a quote. Don't do that. Okay, it has to be written a certain way. Take a look at my example here. So, when Bradbury writes about the robotic house in a short story, quote, there will come soft rains, quote, he's trying to express blah, 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 blah. Quotes actually do two different things, if you didn't know this. The first thing that they do is that they are used to show dialogue in like a story. So my first definition, symbol used to show dialogue. They're a symbol used to show people talking, right? And if you're writing a creative story and you're doing dialogue, you have to like space it out a certain way, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so quote marks are used to show dialogue. Also, the second thing that quotations do, this is a little more advanced example here. I'll let you read the screen for a second while I go grab a book, because I forgot to grab a book. Quote marks can also be used to label or give the title of a short or subsidiary work. Now, if you don't know what that means, remember how we talked about Peter Jackson's King Kong? So, like, let's just say that, like, I wanted to reference a certain scene in King Kong, or the movie, right? I'd have to put the name of that scene in quote marks because it is a smaller part of a larger whole. All right, I'll give you another example. This is one of my favorite books. It is called Red Rising by Pierce Brown. It is an amazing book, and everyone should read it. I'm just going to flip to a chapter and show you. Oh, yeah, sorry, quiz time. What is the title of this book, children? What's the title of it? If you're saying it out loud in your head, good job. Now, let's just say I wanted to show you a chapter of this book. Okay. So, the title of this book is Red Rising. Wonderful. Okay. What is this chapter called? If you said The Lie, you are correct. Now, if I were to reference this book in my essay, and I say Red Rising, because this is a large publication, I would have to write it italicized, meaning like my letters are all slanted, right? If I were to reference just the name of that chapter, chapter 9, I would have to put the chapter name in quotation marks because it is a smaller part of a larger whole. And I hope that makes sense to you. If you guys are music people and you ever see music albums, like you're like, oh man, this one song, it's song number 10 in this music album is my favorite. If you were to write the title of that song, you would put it in quotation marks. But if you were to talk about the entire album as a whole, you would have to write that italicized, meaning like slanted. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So, quote marks, what do? They're a symbol used to show dialogue. Got it, whatever. They're a symbol also, symbol, to show smaller works, smaller or subsidiary sources. You could say works, it doesn't matter. It is a symbol to show smaller subsidiary sources, meaning like small portions of a larger piece. All right. Pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Like, for example, if you ever look at like a poetry book, the name of a poem out of that book would be in quote marks. but the name of the entire book itself would be italicized. That's the difference, okay? The ampersand, one of my favorite symbols, one symbol that I plan on eventually getting a tattoo of. The ampersand is also called the and sign. Some people like to refer to it. Just so you know, every single person draws the ampersand a different way. We'll talk about that in a second. What does the ampersand do? It is the and symbol. However, there's a rule here. I kind of spoiled it. If you guys look at my PowerPoint slide where it says example, it says Kyle and Kitty. Kitty's my wife. Remember, that's her nickname. There's a rule here. Technically, when you use the ampersand, you have to use it for pairs of things, like apples and oranges. You really should not use the ampersand as like a general and, like a replacement for the word and. That's technically not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be for things that are in a pair. So, you know, if you ever hear like companies like Johnson & Johnson or Barnes & Noble, like Barnes & Noble used to be a thing. So you really want to use the ampersand in cases like that. You know, if you and your significant other, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you would write your name and their name. See what I mean? Now notice how, if you guys look at the PowerPoint slide, I drew the ampersand the good old-fashioned way. Oh yeah, by the way, how do you type it? You do Shift 7. So you have to hold down the Shift key and you hit 7 if you guys have a normal keyboard. It's the and symbol. I'm going to put in parentheses. Sorry, I forgot about this. Used only in pairs. Used only in pairs. Okay. So, there we go. All right. The ampersand can be drawn a bunch of different ways. This symbol has been around for a long freaking time. These are some examples of what you would see in the real world. Keep in mind that people draw it differently all the time, and that's okay. Like these ones up in the top right corner, I've seen a lot of people do this in real life in their own handwriting. It's totally fine. It's all the same thing. You know, more fancy fonts like these, like this is what I plan on getting a tattoo of eventually. These are like fancy ways of writing the ampersand, like a classical way. If you guys see this chart up here in the top left, the figure number 1, 2, 3, 4, this is how it used to look a really, really, really long time ago. And over time, the symbol has just evolved into what you see. So the most common ones that you're going to see in real life are these up here, these 4. You're going to see this for typed stuff. And then you're probably going to see this symbol right here in the bottom left corner, like these right over here. Everyone draws it differently, right? But it's all the same thing, okay? People have been drawing this differently all the time. Now, if you want to see, for me personally, you know, I was always like, I was a dork when I was a kid, and my mom would always draw the and symbol like, she would draw it like this way, right? Now, I didn't do it that way. I always did it backwards. I always did it this way. You know, it's just kind of whatever. But this helped me out when I was a little kid because I was dumb and I could never remember where north was. So this is actually how I memorized what a compass looked like, because it's north, south, east, west. Yeah, it just kind of worked for me. Life hack. There you go. There's a free little life hack for you. Or in case you guys are just like, wow, Demony, really? Yeah. Okay, next punctuation. Now we're going into weird punctuation marks, my favorite ones. This is called a pilcrow. A pilcrow looks like one of these. This is another symbol that has been drawn many different ways. The pilcrow is the paragraph symbol. So, paragraph symbol. Now, in case you guys are wondering, how do I type that? Well, you kind of can't unless you have a regular keyboard. If you guys remember, I think I showed this in class, but this number pad that's on the side of my keyboard is called a numpad. And the way that it works is that you would hold down, if you can see over there, the Alt key. So what you would do is you hold down the Alt key and then you type in a number combination and it will type the character that you have. in case you guys didn't know this, like if you've ever wondered how do you type for different languages and things like that, there's actually a way to do that. If you go up to, I guess I should just show you full screen. If you guys are looking in Microsoft Word and you've ever gone to the insert symbol section, there's a thing that says more symbols, and these are all of the typable characters that my computer can type. And you can see that there's a bunch of different languages and things like that here. There's all these keys with accent marks, and there's symbols and, you know, things like that. These are all different keys that you could type if you knew the what's called a Unicode, if you knew the alt code for it. You can see there's a lot of different symbols that are here. This is what we had before emoticons. And we would just have to memorize the code, and we would have to like actually type out whatever it is. So I can teach you some basic ones. Like if you are in a text field where you can type and you hold down Alt and you hit 3, you'll create a heart. For this, if you care to write it down, the alt code is Alt0182. I guess I should demonstrate just so you can see it. So if I'm on my keyboard, there we go, Alt0182, boom, I made a Pilcrow, as you guys can see. Looks like that. Now, Pilcrows look different because different fonts and all that other good stuff. These have been drawn many different ways across time, and I'll show you some examples here in a second. Just so you know, like, where would you ever use this in real life? The paragraph symbol is a really easy way for you to mark paragraphs for like an essay. Look at my example there. I have paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, paragraph 4. That's a really easy way to create an outline, and I will even do that in the classroom when I show you guys how to map out an essay on the fly. So that's what it is. It is the paragraph symbol. Yay. These are some different examples of what they might look like across history. I don't know. Not everyone draws them like how I did anymore. Sometimes you'll see people just do it lazy like this with a C with 2 lines, you know, just kind of depends. But yeah, that's the Pilcrow. Yay, we learned a thing. This is our last one for today. This is called an interrobang. An interrobang is a symbol that not a lot of people have seen. Like, they know what it is when they look at it. Interrobang. The interrobang is quite literally what it looks like. Can draw it down there, or you can draw it the way I have it on the screen. This is another alt code that you have to type in for it to work. It's Alt8253 the last time I checked. I could be wrong on that one though. But what is an interrobang? I mean, combine a question mark with an exclamation point. That's what it is. It's an excited question. So literally an excited question. Now you guys can see there on my PowerPoint slide, I have it written out like this or like that. It is all the same. It's the same thing. People just don't usually actually use the interrobang anymore. They usually just write it out like that. But technically, in the world of writing, that is a real thing. Now, in case you're like, but Demony, what is an excited question? So, like, let's just say that you were in my class and I was like, hey, man, you need to turn in your paper. And somebody is just like, are you serious? Well, yeah, that's an excited question. So if I were to write that out, I would use an interrobang. All right. Well, kiddos, that is basically it for punctuation. You have just learned probably the most vital punctuation marks that you will ever use in the real world. I can't think of any others that you would really need, but if you go on, like, for example, if you do research on this, or if you'll look at the Wikipedia page for how many different punctuation marks are out there, there's a lot. There's like daggers, which are used in law. There's like section Unicodes or section symbols and things like that. Like, there's all sorts of different punctuation marks for different jobs and stuff out there. But what I have shown you is basically the bare minimum for writing. So thanks for watching this video. The next video that will be recorded in this series on this page that you are watching me on will be about like parts of speech and things like that. So if you're interested in seeing those notes, go ahead to part 3. And otherwise, have a good day. Okay, bye.